So this will be interesting because you watched it on TV, so you get to see all the angles and everything as they're doing it. I watched it from the venue, and so my perspective may be a little bit different.
Yeah, I would say so.
You already know what I'm gonna say?
No, but I mean, yeah, I mean, watching it live is totally different than watching it on TV, and just watching it from like a different side of the ring is different, you know. So
no commentary. I didn't get to see the unofficial scores, you know. So a lot of my opinions were formed just based on what I saw, and not saying that your opinions were biased or anything like that, but it's just a different experience, generally speaking. Right?
Well, no, I mean, we've been waiting for this fight for a long time.
Yeah, it was almost too long, wasn't it? Like,
yeah.
It was almost, by the time it came, for a minute, it was very exciting while it happened, but leading up to it, I was almost like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, that's a little bit. It was a little bit anticlimactic, I think.
Do you think so?
A little bit.
Just because somebody didn't get the definitive finish? Or?
Yeah, and it was a really good fight. It was a close fight. It was somewhat of a war, but it wasn't like a knockout, drag out, because nobody got hurt in the fight. You know, nobody got dropped. There was no
moment of
fear. There was no moment of fear for either fighter where you thought they were out. It wasn't like when Ortiz and Wilder fought, and Wilder was like
people go down on both sides.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's not that kind of war, but very competitive.
But I attribute that to both fighters being so evenly matched. You know, I give credit to Triple G for being 36 years old and still being able to fight at that level, and then for Canelo for really stepping up, you know, to kind of take on the monster that Triple G is and kind of beat him at his own game.
I'm glad you say evenly matched. I'm reading a lot of things about Triple G being exposed as a fraud, not being, you know, that. I think that's all nonsense. He went straight up 1-1 with Canelo in 2 separate fights. They're at least competing at the same level, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see Triple G as a fraud, mainly because, you know, he's had a pretty distinguished amateur career.
Yeah,
he's fought a lot of great people in the pros. I think his name has gotten out there a little bit late in the game for him as far as age.
Yeah,
you know, so
that's true.
But I don't think he can't be a fraud. He's definitely one of the greats. He's not the greatest middleweight of all time, but for this era, I mean, he's as good as you can get, you know. And it basically took everything that Canelo had to beat him, you know. And
if you think that he won, which many people don't,
yeah.
A lot of people think that Triple G actually won both of these fights.
Well, let's get into it. Let's analyze the fight. I mean, okay, so fight number 1, it was a highly contested draw. Most people, most experts, most media, most fans think that it was Triple G won the fight 8 rounds to 4, maybe 7 rounds to 5.
I'm in that camp. I thought in the first fight, I thought 8 rounds to 4, 7 rounds to 5.
Yeah, and I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And in the second fight, the tables turned. I think Canelo won it pretty convincingly, 7-5. You know, and
convincingly 7-5.
Yeah,
that's only a 1 round difference.
Yeah. That's how close it was, though. That's how close it was. I mean, that's how close it was. But I think Canelo came out. You know, he took the fight to Triple G from the first round all the way to the very end. For me, it was a solid performance from round 1 through 6. And I had said that before in the previous podcast that, you know, Canelo came out really strong in the first fight, round 1 through 3. I said he would have to come out strong for at least the first 6 rounds, because the first half of the fight, if you can take that, that's very important. Then after that, you can not pick your rounds from 5 to 12, but if you can steal a couple, then you got a really good shot of winning. I think that's exactly what he did. I think what's ironic about this fight is that he acted like the bigger man. He was moving forward. He walked Triple G down. You know, Abel Sanchez, I kind of feel like there's egg on his face, because he was, you know, he was baiting Canelo to walk forward. He said, "Hey, come on, fight Mexican style." And that's
to an extent it worked. His baiting, right?
It did, but the thing is, Triple G didn't deliver on his side of it. You know, he didn't fight back. You know, yeah, he threw more jabs, But does Triple G win fights on throwing jabs? Like he wins fights off throwing bombs.
Yeah.
And you know, the last fight he was chasing Canelo, he was walking him down, and he was catching him at the end of his punches. On this fight, it was the other way around. You know, Canelo wasn't backing up. He stayed in the center of the ring. I thought he was jamming him up, Triple G, where he wasn't able to get his shots off. Even though Triple G was landing more jabs, I thought Canelo was finishing the combinations, the exchanges better. I thought he was getting better on the exchanges. And maybe he surprised a lot of people and surprised the judges with his fighting style. And that's what kind of impressed them to give him the rounds. Because they were close rounds, but I thought that his strategy worked. You know, he was moving forward. Triple G looked very uncomfortable walking backwards and trying to be a counterpuncher. He also looked tired from round 3 and on. He was breathing heavy. So it was, you know, they had him out of his element. Triple G was not in his element. He started walking forward in 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And that's when he was actually most successful. But aside from those 2 rounds, to me, it was they were close rounds, but it was a very dominant performance. Even though it was a close fight, it was definitive that Canelo won to me.
Wow. So I think my vantage point was a little bit different. I think it was a closer fight than the last fight, right? So I look at the last fight and I'm in that camp that says it's, you know, 7 rounds to 5, 8 rounds to 4, Triple G. This fight I think is a much closer fight. I can understand the frustration. I personally am okay with the draw. I understand the frustration of Triple G fans. So a Triple G fan may say, hey, look, last time was a close fight with the edge towards Triple G, but the benefit of the doubt went to Canelo and he walked away with a draw. This time it was a close fight and the benefit of the doubt again went to Canelo and he walked away with a majority decision. So there's some frustration, I think, amongst Triple G fans that justice hasn't really been served, that Canelo is constantly getting the benefit of the doubt. And I think that anyone who has sort of the mentality of you need to take it from the champ, right, which is sort of a common saying, and that's not a theory that I subscribe to. Obviously, we've had debates on the show about sort of that concept before because I think it inserts an unnecessary bias into rounds. But if you're of that thought, if you're of that mindset that you need to take it from the champ, I don't think Canelo took it from the champ in that sense. I think the rounds are too close, and that if you have to give someone the benefit of the doubt in a round, that has to go to Triple G. Now, I'm not of that camp, so I tend to look at each round and try to pick the pattern.
I think that's a true statement in boxing, that you have to take it from the champ. You know,
do you feel like the champ took it from Triple G?
Oh, absolutely,
oh,
absolutely.
Wow.
However, this type of fight is a mega fight.
Yeah.
Where both guys are champions. I mean, both guys are so evenly matched, and both guys are so highly respected and highly decorated that they're both champs.
Sure.
I see that statement where you have to take it to the champ, you have to beat the champ. I see that for somebody that's an underdog and not expected to do well.
But why? Well, yeah. Again, this would get into me sort of arguing why would there be any bias towards who's the champion or who's not? Shouldn't the rounds just be based on what the rounds are and not say, hey, if you're an underdog, then I may not give you the benefit of the doubt. I don't think really anybody should just be getting the benefit of the doubt, and that's why I've sort of in the past advocated for more 10-10 rounds. But I'll say this. Here's what I saw. Let's go back to what we said each fighter needed to do, right? So for Canelo, we said he needs to exchange more, right? Stand at the center of the ring, stay off the back foot, and definitely stay off the ropes, which he did. Right, 100%.
I think he went on the ropes one time.
Yeah, only one time. Once. And it may have cost him that round, actually.
Yeah.
But
he got caught.
Yeah, he did get caught a few times. So I think that he did make that adjustment, and he participated in exchanges more. However, I do think that sometimes there was too much inactivity. So where you might like to see Canelo participate in those exchanges, maybe 45 seconds or at the beginning and at the end of each round, there were lulls in activity where Triple G's jab was the majority of what was happening, and I think that's most evident in the early rounds. So you had said that you thought Canelo sort of took that first half of the fight, and I actually thought Canelo came on more in like round 7 and 8, where he started winning clearly in each round, whereas the first half of the fight was closer, because what you're comparing is the few shots that Canelo lands that are power shots to the many, many jabs that Triple G is throwing, which are perceived as being powerful jabs because they're coming from Triple G. So for instance, I think Triple G won the first round just because Canelo wasn't active enough to take away all of what Triple G was doing with that jab. However, I am okay more with the draw. I do understand the frustration of Triple G fans in the sense that perhaps justice was not done, considering they were both close, but both times Canelo sort of was the beneficiary of the decision.
Unofficially, this rivalry is tied. It's 1-1.
Yeah.
So I understand.
It should be.
Yeah, I understand how Triple G fans feel. You know, especially from the first fight, the result of the first fight, and then this fight being so close. You know, so unofficially, it's 1-1.
Yeah. You can call it that.
So I think if you can live with that, that'll give you some peace of mind. However, you know, to kind of rebut on those jabs, Canelo was doing body work from the first round on throughout the whole fight, and there was absolutely no body work from Triple G. He might have landed one significant body shot the whole fight, whereas Canelo was working the body over and over again, and I think that was building his lead.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we talked about what we said the keys were for Canelo, which was standing in the ring at the center more, exchanging more. Our keys for Triple G were, or at least mine were, and I think you were in agreement, more body work and starting faster, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that he definitely started faster in the sense that he came out and he was using the jab a lot, using the lead hand. I actually feel as though he depended upon the lead hand a little bit too much, which is even when he was throwing combinations, they were all coming off with the lead hand. He seemed hesitant to sort of let that rear hand go, especially in the first half of the fight. But the one thing he didn't do is one of the keys being investing in the body work. He definitely didn't do that in this fight.
Yeah, the other thing that he didn't do was establish his will, his presence.
Yeah.
We're used to seeing Triple G being so strong and walking people down, people that are bigger than him, other heavy punchers, and he was walking back most of the fight. There was maybe 2 to 3 rounds where he was walking forward, but he didn't establish his presence, his will, he didn't inflict fear into Canelo. And that's one thing I give Canelo a lot of credit for, is not being afraid to walk into the lion's den, as they said. He just walked right in there and punched Triple G in the mouth, figuratively and literally, and he stayed there. And I think he actually put a little bit, and you know, not that Triple G would be scared, but he put a little bit of fear in Triple G to say, hey, this guy changed it up. This guy's coming to fight me this time. And the other thing is, there's really no adjustment or change in Triple G. He does what he does, which is throw big shots. Right? We've seen him use his jab against Lemieux, but he didn't adjust at all in this fight. He wasn't able to fight going backwards. They didn't have really any game plan as far as A, B, or C. I mean, what was the game plan? Like I said, I really put a lot of blame on Abel Sanchez for the performance of this. I think this loss is on his shoulders, because I didn't see a good game plan other than them baiting Canelo and pissing him off.
Did you feel as though, I was saying before that it looked to me he was hesitant with the rear hand, that a lot of his work was with the lead hand, even the power punches. Did it come across that way when you were watching it on?
Yeah, I noticed from like round 6 and on, I was thinking that Triple G was waiting to set him up, to open something up, but he never threw it.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, you know, maybe his shoulder's hurt, his hand is hurt, you know, and that's what, the jab can be a great weapon, but you can't win solely on the jab. You've got to use it to open up for your other weapons, which Triple G's got monstrous bombs, a great right hand, whether it's a hook or a cross. And he landed it a few times, but as many jabs as he threw, he didn't set up that right hand. So I think that's what cost him the fight. It's not really letting go of that right hand. But part of that, I think, is the defense of Canelo and the range at which he was fighting, because I could see that in the exchanges, he was jamming him up. Whereas, you know, Triple G was trying to throw the jab, and Canelo was slipping some of those jabs or getting hit with those jabs, but still closing the distance so that right hand wouldn't have the room to find him.
It did also, I mean, it looked to me like you had mentioned he looked gassed, right? You said like around 3 rounds into it, he's really doing it.
And frustrated.
I will say that, you know, he's pumping that jab out there, and he's not letting go of that rear hand, but he's doing a lot of good work with the jab, with the lead hand, keeping that distance and timing right. And I think that deteriorated over the course of the fight, probably because he was winded. So you saw more of the jab early on in the fight. He tried to reestablish it later, but there were some rounds in the middle there, you know, 7 and 8, where it did appear that Canelo started to take control of the fight, and that Triple G would have to do something to take it back. You know, like he was going to have to win a round to show that, hey, the rest of this fight won't be one-sided. I'm still going to be in here to compete. At the end of the day, I think one of the key differences to me is, you know, they always talk about the concept of ring generalship, and that's something that people often get confused by. Like, what does that mean, ring generalship? To me, ring generalship always means whose fight are they fighting, which it's not necessarily going forwards or going backwards, but it's who's controlling the tempo, who's controlling the pace, and who's controlling the type of fight that they're actually doing. And I think that the thing that goes in Canelo's favor, and the reason that the judges and everyone else who picked Canelo in this fight, the main thing was that it was a Canelo fight that they were fighting. This didn't look like your typical Triple G fight. This wasn't Triple G coming forward and applying that kind of pressure. At the end of the day, there's no doubt about the fact that when you watch the fight, it was Canelo's tempo and speed that they were fighting at, and I believe that that is what judges and the fans who think Canelo won are really looking at to say, this is why we're giving the benefit of the doubt to Canelo, because this time in particular, they're fighting Canelo's fight. Last time, they were fighting Triple G's fight, and perhaps it should have gone his way. This time, they were fighting Canelo's fight, and therefore, it went his way.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, you know, Canelo took command, in my eyes, from the first round on to the very end. Yes, there were rounds where Triple G came on and took those rounds, but for the most part, this was Canelo's fight, where they totally turned the tables from the first fight, and you know, they did the exact opposite. Instead of going back, they started moving forward, and it was a great strategy. I mean, how often do you see Triple G fight backwards? I don't think ever. You know, so that if that question was in their mind, like, we've got to make this guy fight off his back foot,
sure,
then that's a great strategy, because you're going to tell yourself, this guy never fights off his back foot. He's not going to know what to do. And I could see frustration on Triple G's face when he was going backwards, because he couldn't figure out what to do. He couldn't figure out what to do. And it was, you know, I don't want to say Triple G was old, because, you know, 36 isn't old, but he did show, to me, he did show some ring rust or some wear, just from all the fights that he's had. You know, Canelo had, I think they said 364 days since the last time he was in the ring. So, you know, he was rested. I think he was rested. I think it might have been a mistake to fight Martrosian for Triple G. You know, because every camp, it's not so much the fight that takes something out of you. Every
training camp.
Yeah, it's the training camp. It's the sparring. It's the miles. It's the running on the knees. You know, that stuff wears you out. And it's like, you know, you get into conspiracies and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, it all worked out in Canelo and Golden Boy's favor, where, you know, it's somewhat of a redemption story too. It's like, hey, you got busted for clenbuterol, you know, everybody's calling you a cheater, then you come back and beat somebody that's supposed to be bigger and stronger than you, and without the help of, you know, PEDs. And then also, I mean, you have kind of the advantage of having that extra rest, having your knee recuperate, and then having Triple G get older.
Yeah.
So everything just worked out in favor of Canelo and Golden Boy. And at the end of the day, it was definitely a good night for them, obviously because they won. But it was a good ending to that story. I don't know that they're going to fight again. Personally, I wouldn't want to see them fight again. I'd leave it at that. I think Triple G's just too risky of a fight still. He's got power. I mean, he's even, for me, that wasn't 100% Triple G. You know, that wasn't his best performance. When you get him at his best performance, he's hard to beat. Sure. Seeing that he's getting older, it's hard to see that he's gonna be 100% Triple G. Yeah. You know, so that's one reason I wouldn't want to see the fight. Plus, I think this is a whole new chapter for Canelo. You know, this is like, no, he finally made it over that hump.
Yeah.
And you know, the fighting Triple G was that big what if.
Yeah.
You know, and now I think the door's wide open for him where he can fight anybody and he can reign on top of that mountain as the best in boxing. Where he's now how Mayweather was. He's now where Mayweather was. So I'd like to see him fight Charlo. I'd like to see him fight Danny Jacobs and you know, maybe Jaime Munguia down the line.
Billy Joe.
Yeah, Billy Joe Saunders, Lemieux, any of those top middleweights. You know, I think that it's time for Canelo to fight some new people.
A couple comments. So in terms of Triple G getting older, I will say that this is the older version of Triple G. He's extremely competitive and in many eyes actually even winning not one but just 2 times against Canelo to a lot of people. So I think that in terms of what that means for Triple G, he's actually still very competitive with Canelo. Would I want to see it again? I would not. I wouldn't want to see it again. Would I watch it again? Of course I would. Of course I would watch it again. But I think the whole build-up and the point that you made about Triple G just getting older and not necessarily at this point in his career being able to take it from where he is to another level of performance, the expectation that Triple G at this point can really only at best stay par, but perhaps sort of deteriorate or decline. It's not the same fight. They were both very competitive. They were both very close. I do think that there is a lingering sense with Triple G fans and with Triple G that there's still justice to be had, right? There's still the definitive performance, the performance that shows that I won definitely the first time and that you could have said that I won the second time. And for that reason, I think it may happen again. Initially, it sounded as though Triple G wouldn't be interested in a third fight, but immediately afterwards, he sounded interested in it again. Not to mention the fact that undoubtedly these two are the biggest purse for each other that they could get. Meaning, I don't know that Canelo could go on and make more money than he'll make fighting Triple G a third time, and I don't know that Triple G could go on and make more money than he'll make fighting Canelo. Canelo, as a pay-per-view star, for instance, Canelo versus Charlo. Charlo, I don't know, is at a point where he's a big enough name to make for a substantial pay-per-view sort of event in the same way that Triple G can. So because they're the biggest money opponents for each other, and because there's still a sense from Triple G and certainly Triple G's fans that we still haven't seen justice because he still deserves the win over Canelo that he didn't get in the first fight that most people think he got, there is a chance, I think, that we'll see it again. And of course, I will watch it. Either way, I think it was a very close fight, a competitive fight. I'm okay with the draw. And I also understand being okay with the draw. I feel like you have to be okay with it going either way by a round.
Yeah.
In some sense, I do think that the bad scorecard from the first fight, Adelaide Bird's scorecard, adds to the sort of stigma.
Well, that's
here,
that's
right?
always going to be.
Yeah,
that's always going to be a
fight.
sour note on this whole on the doubleheader. You know, on these guys fighting back to back.
It makes this one more controversial, right?
Yeah,
this fight is more controversial because everyone still feels as though he should have won the first fight because of Adelaide Bird's scorecard. So that scorecard, you can see how that one bad scorecard is really tainting two very entertaining and competitive fights.
Yeah. Well, I do think if they fight again, that they're going to make Triple G wait again. And actually, I think Golden Boy, if Triple G wants a rematch, I don't know if there was a rematch clause on his end. You know, I think they're gonna feed him a story where, hey, you're not the A side.
Yeah.
And you know, you're not that big of a draw. Which, you know, from my perspective, he's a big draw. I would watch it again, but there's some other fish out there too.
And if you're Canelo, at this point, do you take that fight again, right? Because you have the win, you have the draw, you basically, aside from the fact that obviously it's the biggest money fight that you can make, if you take the fight, then you run the risk of a loss against a guy who's been very competitive with you 2 times, a la sort of Marquez.
Yeah, I think that's one reason for Canelo to avoid him, absolutely. You know, and to say you beat him once is good enough, you know, because I think, you know, Marquez, It took him how many fights?
Four.
To beat Pacquiao. So
to get the best knockout.
Yeah, and then once.
But it was definitive final.
Yeah, but you know what? Who gets a definitive victory on Triple G? Nobody. I don't know if he's ever been knocked down.
But yeah, it's more for Triple G's sake. That's what I mean.
Exactly.
It benefits Triple G's legacy more than it would benefit Canelos at this point.
Absolutely. And I think it was a great fight. I think it was good for boxing. It was a good distraction, you know, in these crazy times. But it was a great fight for boxing where, you know, it had a global interest. And I think Canelo, for me, it's a chapter that's ready to be closed. And for Canelo to not to take anything away from Triple G, but to move on to bigger things. Maybe some international fights with Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, you know, Vegas is Canelo's town, is Golden Boy's town, but you know, Golden Boy is all about money. So, well, every promoter is all about money, but
sure.
You know, a fight with Billy Joe in England, something like that. That could be huge. So there's so many more options now for Canelo, where there's very few options for Triple G. Had Triple G won, would he retire? I think it would have been best for him to retire.
Where do you go? Well, I suppose if you're Triple G, the one thing you could still do from there is unify the titles and become sort of the undisputed. Champion.
But I do think that his fighting style is it's kind of run its course, where you know you walk somebody down and it works for a while, but like Julio Cesar Chavez, he was that type of fighter, and at some point, you know, he ran into a guy named Frankie Randall, and you know he was beating everybody, and then once he ran into that guy, couldn't beat him. Fought him twice, couldn't beat him, and I kind of feel like Triple G is not that Canelo is the Frankie Randall to Triple G, but I just think it's time for him to probably retire. But you know, for boxers, they always keep fighting, and if they can sell tickets and make some money, they'll keep fighting. But Triple G is such a figure, such a strong figure in boxing, where I don't want to see him get beat up. I don't want to see him get hurt.
It's one of the reasons why I say I don't want to see it again.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's going to continue to deteriorate.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to see him go down like the Roy Jones path. Or any Evander Holyfield. He had a great career. It took everything for Canelo to beat him, and I think he should ride off into the sunset. Hopefully, he made a lot of money on this fight. Pretty sure he did.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that if they fought, I mean, it was so competitive the first time, so competitive the second time. It's hard to make a case for him not fighting again. But, you know, for the sake of Triple G's legacy, I sort of hope that he moves on from the Canelo chapter. And it also, right now, feels played out. But I would also say that as things start to get set through the media over time, you may feel differently, like a month from now, 2 months from now, you may say, no, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe. And also, you know, both guys might say the same thing. Depends what the numbers look like. But yeah, I mean, after everybody's healed up and rested, you know, who knows what they're going to say. But I wouldn't be surprised to hear like Mayweather's try to call out Triple G or other people call out Triple G, even though they have been calling him out. But I saw some, what do you call it? Some kinks in the armor there.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's still relevant. He could get a lot of fights, but for me, his legacy is cemented. He's one of the all-time greats in the middleweight division, and hopefully that's good enough for him to walk away.
In terms of kinks in the armor, I think that when competing at that level, it's just to me that you're competing against other great fighters.
Yeah, of course.
And everybody has some weakness that gets exposed when they're competing at the highest levels of the sport. So I certainly wouldn't say that he's not able to compete at this level. I think he's proved in 3 out of the last 4 fights. Of course, Monterosian being the demolition job, but still competitive with Jacobs, competitive with Canelo. And these are some of the best fighters, or the best fighters, I should say, in the division. So he's still competing with guys at the top of the division in so close a fight, in fact, that some people think he won.
Absolutely. Yeah. But, Golden Boy and Canelo, they're going to take this victory and run with it. I think Triple G.
They're out of here, huh?
Yeah, I think they're going to force Triple G to fight 1 or 2 more times somebody else to rebuild up his name or rebuild up his stature. someone so invincible. And yeah, I think they're gonna make him wait. I don't think they're gonna give him an immediate rematch. So we'll see what happens. But for me, it was a big moment for Canelo, where this is his era now.
Yeah.
You know, this is his moment from this point on. I think we haven't even seen the best of Canelo.
Sure.
So I'm excited to see what the future holds as far as who he's going to fight. I mean, if he fights one of the Charlos, which is, he could fight either one.
Yeah.
You know, he could fight either one. That's very appealing to me. Like, if he could beat two champion brothers, you know, or you know, these other guys out there. But yeah, it's the Canelo era now.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's our recap of Canelo and Triple G. Coach, Canelo 7-5.
Yeah.
I thought it was a draw, but either way, I think we both agree.
Yeah.
Good fight, right?
It's a great fight.
All right.